The man inside the black turtleneck. Every generation produces innovators. Every century produces visionaries. But only a few individuals change the way humanity lives, works, communicates, and thinks. Steve Jobs was one of those rare people. Millions knew him as the man wearing a black turtleneck standing on a brightly lit stage. Every time he walked onto that stage, the world paid attention. People didn't just watch his presentations. They watched history being made. Yet behind the fame, behind the billion-dollar products, behind the standing ovations, was a complicated man. A perfectionist, a dreamer, a rebel, a genius, and sometimes a difficult person to understand. His story isn't simply about technology. It's a story about ambition, obsession, failure, redemption, and the relentless pursuit of greatness. The devices in our pockets, the computers on our desks, and the digital world we live in today all carry traces of his vision. But before he became one of the most influential people in history, he was simply a child searching for his place in the world. And that search would change humanity forever. A child given away. On February 24, 1955, in San Francisco, a baby boy entered the world. His biological parents were young and unable to raise him. Shortly after birth, the child was placed for adoption. That child was Steve Jobs. He was adopted by Paul and Clara Jobs, a modest working-class couple who promised to give him a better future. Although Steve would later become one of the richest men on earth, his childhood was far from luxurious. The Jobs family lived a simple life. His father worked as a mechanic and craftsman. His mother handled the household while encouraging Steve's curiosity. Years later, Steve would say he never felt abandoned. Paul and Clara were his real parents. Yet somewhere deep inside, the knowledge of being adopted created questions that would stay with him throughout his life. Questions about identity, questions about purpose, questions that fueled an extraordinary determination to prove himself to the world. The garage classroom. The Jobs family garage became Steve's first laboratory. His father taught him something that would shape his future forever. Do every job beautifully, even the parts nobody sees. While repairing cars and building equipment, Paul Jobs showed young Steve the value of craftsmanship. It wasn't enough for something to work. It had to be excellent. This lesson became a lifelong obsession. Steve developed a fascination with electronics. He spent hours taking devices apart and studying how they worked. Unlike most children, he wasn't satisfied with using technology. He wanted to understand it. Even at a young age, he showed signs of thinking differently. He questioned everything: rules, systems, traditions, authority. Many teachers found him challenging. Some thought he was disruptive. Others recognized the brilliance hiding beneath his rebellious personality. What nobody knew was that the curious boy in the garage was preparing for a future that would transform modern civilization. The rebel student. School was never Steve Jobs' favorite place. He often became bored. The structured environment frustrated him. He preferred exploration over memorization, experimentation over repetition. His teachers struggled to control him. Yet when something truly captured his attention, his focus became almost superhuman. Friends later described him as intense. Even as a teenager, he possessed an unusual ability to persuade people. Some called it charisma. Others called it manipulation. Years later, Apple employees would give it a name: the reality distortion field. Steve could convince people that impossible things were possible. Deadlines could be met. Problems could be solved. Dreams could become reality. This extraordinary gift would eventually help him build one of the most successful companies in history. But before that could happen, he needed to meet the person who would become his most important partner. Meeting Steve Wozniak. When Steve Jobs met Steve Wozniak, something remarkable happened. The two young men couldn't have been more different. Wozniak was a brilliant engineer. Quiet, friendly, focused entirely on technology. Jobs was ambitious, bold, visionary, focused on changing the world. Together, they formed the perfect partnership. Wozniak could build extraordinary machines. Jobs could recognize opportunities nobody else could see. The pair bonded over electronics, creativity, and a shared belief that computers would eventually become important for ordinary people. At the time, this idea sounded ridiculous. Computers were massive, expensive machines used mainly by governments and corporations. Very few people imagined owning one at home, but Steve Jobs did. And he was determined to make that future a reality. Dropping out to find himself. In 1972, Steve enrolled at Reed College. The tuition was expensive. His parents spent their savings to help him attend. Yet after only a few months, Steve made a shocking decision. He dropped out. To many people, it seemed irresponsible, even foolish. But Steve believed formal education wasn't giving him what he needed. Without being enrolled, he continued attending classes that interested him. One of those classes focused on calligraphy, beautiful lettering, typography, design. At the time, it appeared completely useless. Years later, those lessons would influence the design of the Macintosh computer and eventually every modern computer interface. It was another example of Steve Jobs' philosophy. You cannot connect the dots looking forward. You can only connect them looking backward. A journey to India. Before building Apple, Steve searched for something deeper than success. He traveled to India seeking spiritual enlightenment. He explored meditation, philosophy, and Eastern teachings. The journey was difficult. The conditions were harsh, but the experience changed him. Steve returned to America with a different perspective. He became fascinated by simplicity, minimalism, focus. The idea that removing unnecessary complexity often creates something more powerful. This philosophy would later define every Apple product. Simple, elegant, powerful. The lessons he learned far from Silicon Valley would eventually influence devices used by billions of people worldwide. Steve Jobs, the man who changed the world. The birth of Apple. In 1976, inside a small garage in California, Steve Jobs and Steve Wozniak began building something
revolutionary.
They had no
He was
giant
one of the
office,
most creative
no
and
army of
daring
employees,
CEOs.
no guarantee of success,
A global
only an
icon
idea,
who
a belief that computers should belong to ordinary people, not just scientists and corporations. Together, they created the first Apple computer. Jobs sold personal belongings to raise money. Wozniak sold his prized calculator. Every dollar mattered. Every component mattered. Every decision mattered. The company they founded was called Apple. A simple name, a simple logo. But behind that simplicity was an ambition unlike anything the technology industry had ever seen. The garage quickly became a symbol of innovation. Orders began arriving. Investors became interested. What started as a dream between two friends was rapidly becoming a business. And neither of them could imagine how big it would become. The Apple II revolution. The release of Apple II changed everything. Unlike previous computers, it was designed for ordinary consumers. It was user-friendly, reliable, practical. Businesses started buying it. Schools adopted it. Families brought it into their homes. Sales exploded. Revenue surged. Apple became one of the fastest-growing companies in American history. Steve Jobs was still in his 20s, yet he was already becoming one of Silicon Valley's most talked-about entrepreneurs. His confidence grew. So did his expectations. He demanded perfection from everyone around him. Employees worked long hours. Deadlines seemed impossible. But Jobs constantly pushed people beyond their limits. Many complained. Many quit. But those who stayed often achieved things they never thought possible. The Macintosh dream. Steve Jobs wanted more than success. He wanted a revolution. He believed computers should be beautiful, simple, friendly, human. This vision led to the development of the Macintosh. The project became Steve's obsession. He pushed engineers relentlessly. Arguments became common. Pressure became intense. But Jobs refused to compromise. In 1984, the Macintosh was finally unveiled. The launch stunned the world. For many people, it felt like a glimpse into the future. A machine that ordinary people could understand and enjoy. The Macintosh didn't just introduce a product. It introduced a new philosophy of computing. One that continues to influence technology even today. The fall of a visionary. Success can create enemies. As Apple grew larger, tensions inside the company intensified. Executives questioned Steve's leadership style. Board members worried about his decisions. Power struggles emerged behind closed doors. The conflict eventually reached a breaking point. In 1985, Steve Jobs was forced out of Apple, the company he had built, the company he loved, the company that carried his vision. At just 30 years old, he lost control of everything he had worked for. The media called it a disaster. Many believed his career was over. Few people expected him to recover. But history was about to prove them wrong. Building next. Most people would have disappeared after such a public failure. Steve Jobs did the opposite. He started again. He founded a new company called Next. The goal was ambitious: create the most advanced computer in the world. Jobs invested millions of dollars into the project. The products were beautiful and technologically impressive, but they were expensive. Sales remained limited. To outsiders, Next looked like another failure. Yet hidden beneath the surface was technology far ahead of its time. Technology that would eventually help save Apple itself. Sometimes the true value of innovation isn't recognized immediately. Sometimes and a music player into one product. Competitors underestimated it. Some laughed at it, but consumers loved it. The iPhone transformed communication, business, entertainment, photography, and daily life. It became one of the most successful products ever created. And once again, Steve Jobs had changed the world. The final battle. Behind the scenes, Steve Jobs was facing a much more personal challenge. In 2003, doctors diagnosed him with cancer. At first, he tried alternative treatments. Eventually, surgery became necessary. For years, he continued working despite declining health. He attended meetings, continues to shape the future. Because some people build products, some people build companies, but a few extraordinary individuals build the future itself. And Steve Jobs was one of them.